Good morning, and I'm back. I think it was a Gene Autry song, one of those old Western songs, back in the saddle again. And this is Wednesday's. I'll be at the church 3:30 Bible study this afternoon. Tonight I will not be doing the Bible study. We have a great special visitor, Joseph Esposito from Pacific Baptist Church. He'll be out speaking, doing our Bible study tonight. But anyway, I am in my office and getting the ball rolling, and I'm still not 100%. Obviously, just yesterday was 2 weeks from my surgery, a knee replacement surgery. But I feel good, and I can't do as I'm not back to normal. The doctor said 6 months after surgery, which my right knee is only 4 months. He said 6 months you'll be up about, whatever percent, 50, 60%. 8 months you'll be 80% or whatever. And he said it'll take up to a year to actually get everything back. But anyway, I'm sort of at least trying to get the ball rolling again and be the pastor. But thank you for joining us today. I want to take just a moment and talk about music. And the other day I was somewhere, I can't remember where it was, but we were with one of the grandkids, and there's some music playing, and little grandkids. And you know what? If you've not seen it, you've not paid attention or whatever, but we've all been around it. We get some music playing and little kids start bouncing. And it doesn't take much for a kid to grab the beat, and it makes an impact. And then the other night, I'm trying to think when it was that it was bedtime, and I'm walking by. We have our son and daughter-in-law missionaries to Trinidad who are living with us right now. They've had some paperwork difficulties, and long story short, what was supposed to be able to be taken care of in Trinidad wasn't, so they had to come home for a couple months, and now it's been, I think, 8 months they're waiting on paperwork, and they're very active. Our son Josiah, he's been down to Mexico. He's going to the Caribbean with a group from his church in Trinidad, running outreach, evangelistic meetings and all, but they're kind of in limbo. But anyway, so their two little girls are in our house, and the little one, maybe 3-year-old, they're in bed and just quiet. And I'm walking by, listening to the 3-year-old singing, "I will make you fishers of men, fishers of men, fishers of men. I'll make you fishers of men if you follow me." And so, laying in bed, singing these songs from Sunday school, music touches us. The bouncing from the rhythm, or the lyrics that get into our head and into our heart. And it's important that we understand the great power of music. I challenge people, mute the volume at a chase scene or an exciting part of a movie and see how it changes it. During commercials, you mute the volume at the average commercial, it looks like a bunch of weird dressed freaks bouncing around, having seizures or something. Music affects things. Music, whether it be a cartoon or whether it be an old, an old black and white movie, music affects things. Well, we walked in to the orthopedic surgeon's office, my wife and I, for a follow-up. And we walked in, and there's no music playing in there, just a couple of gals behind the desk and a couple of patients. And my wife said, "It's really quiet in here." We're used to noise. We're used to something going on, and we notice those things. It's hard to imagine that we're not aware of the power and the constant work of music. You could go to the sex and drug crazed Woodstocks or Haight-Ashbury of the 60s. You're going to get a bunch of young people together doing drugs, shaming their moral values, living perverse. You're going to have music playing, and it's not going to be hymns. It's not going to be the old rugged cross and Jesus saves. There is music that goes with things. Somebody said, with the rise of automated vehicles and auto-driving vehicles, they said it's not going to be very long before some country and western singer writes a song about a man whose truck left him. And just because these trucks are driving on their own, and then in country western music you lose things or whatever, he's making fun of the music. And that was a secular thing. But yeah, the country and western has a sound, it has an atmosphere, and we understand that. And you watch the old westerns. We've all seen old movies where Indians are war dancing, and there's going to be chanting and rhythm and pounding of drums. Doesn't have to be a melody or a harmony, but you got to have that beat, because that beat stirs up the body. You can go to the old Tarzan movies, and I'm sure there's plenty of newer ones. I just don't know what they are because I don't watch TV. But you see these natives in a jungle getting ready to do whatever, going on a hunt, or going our tribe against their tribe, and they're inappropriately clothed, and they're dancing, and there's a driving beat, a rhythm. You don't have to have a melody, you don't have to have harmony, but you need that rhythm, that pounding thing that works on that flesh. And that goes all the way up to the nightclub world around us, and the indiscreet world, the inappropriate world, the vulgar and the lewd. They've got a music style where the beat and the rhythm is that driving thing. And if you were to mention a certain type of music to a person who knows music at all, there is an ambiance created. Like if you said big band, I played some of that music in my youth, and to me, I was a kid, it was just fun music. But I could hear the trumpets and the trombones to In the Mood, and that big band era, and Tommy Dorsey and Glenn Miller, and that whole era there. But if you were to say ragtime or boogie woogie or some other type of music, all the way up to the rap of today and the raunchy, the gangster rap of today, there's a sound and there's an ambiance that goes with it. When I think of Dixieland and that fun Southern Dixieland style of music, I don't think people with their pants hanging down, halfway down their bottoms, doing gang signs, saying vulgar words. There is an ambiance. There's something that goes with that style of music. And it does matter. You don't see people in their pants they got off the elephant sale rack, and tons of jewelry hanging around them, and they're vulgar. You don't see them singing Amazing Grace in 4-part harmony. They don't go together. Music matters. Music has got a culture, and the question is, which came first, the chicken or the egg? And so the question is, it's not a question, I'm just going to tell you, the music helps create the mood. It helps create the ambiance. And rebellion does not draw. On a hill far away stood an old rugged cross. Rebellion and anarchy, of fighting between parents and kids, it's not going to go arm in arm with good old-fashioned music that Roy Rogers and Dale Evans are singing. There's music, and it goes with a lifestyle, and there's no way around it. And just in regard to that, 1 Samuel 16, Saul was in big trouble, and God had sent an evil spirit to trouble Saul. And in 1 Samuel 16, they brought David, and in verse 16 it says, "Let our Lord command thy servants which are before thee to seek out a man who is cunning player on a harp, and it shall come to pass, when the evil spirit from God is upon thee, he shall play with his hand, and thou shalt be well." And they sought out David. That's where David comes into the story. But these guys knew there is a right type of music that will help you when you are under satanic oppression. Now listen, there is music that you can play, that you can have around you, that will push the evil spirits away. That is a biblical fact. It is an undeniable fact. And it doesn't mention lyrics. It mentions music. He will play with his hand, and the evil spirit will depart, and he will be well. You see it again a little bit later in verse 23. And it came to pass, when the evil spirit from God was upon Saul, that David took an harp and played with his hands. So Saul was what? Refreshed, and was well. And third, the evil spirit departed from him. That's body, soul, and spirit. That music that David played not only got rid of the evil spirit, it helped Saul's flesh, his body, to be well. It helped him mentally to be well, and that evil spirit departed from him. There is something to be said for playing good music. If you're down and you're struggling with some melancholy, get good music playing. Get some godly music. Get some old hymns. Find some. There's music everywhere online these days, but get good hymns of the faith and sing along and fill your mind with those songs, because the demon of depression that gets on you, you get the right music going and you can get rid of it. I think praise, the song, Count Your Many Blessings. Name them one by one. It'll surprise you what the Lord hath done. You get that demon of depression, anxiety on you, start counting your blessings. Hey, let's just make a praise list. Let's just write down 10 things God's done for us today or this week. Let's write down 10 things we're thankful for. And you get your 10 things, and then thank God publicly, out loud. Just you in the room by yourself, or you and your spouse. Thank God. Let's just take a minute and bow our heads and thank God for our house, for our car, for our dog, for our whatever. By the time you get through those 10 things, I know this: the evil spirits that brought depression, anxiety, and defeat and discouragement, they're going to be cowering in the corners, because you brought in praise and thanksgiving. And if you add music to that, and you put godly music, a godly sound of music with godly lyrics, now you got a double-barreled shotgun shooting at these evil spirits that are bringing you depression and despair and discouragement. And there is a type of music that will help you. You're being attacked by worry and fear, and get some good music. Trust and obey, for there's no other way to be happy in Jesus. That's why I say, you've heard me say it, you need the good book and you need a hymn book. Then you need a checkbook, but most people don't write checks anymore. I still write checks. But we've got to work at this thing and understand that music matters. Music matters so much. It matters to our body, it matters to our spirit, it matters to our mind and our soul. Music matters. Because of that, music matters in church. Now, I like music that's up and bright and fresh, but I don't need the beat, where the beat affects your body, the lyrics affect your mind, and the melody and harmony affects your soul, your emotion, your intellect, and your will. Good harmony. And I want that beat to be the subdued thing behind. Any kind of music's got a beat, but I want that beat to be subdued. And I want the lyrics and the harmony and the melody to carry the lead. And I want that to be, because those are the things that'll help me spiritually. And you get the wrong beat going, and it'll encourage demonic attention. And you, of course, don't want that kind of thing. But in church, we don't need to bring the rock music of the world and the rap of the world and the nasty music of the world and bring it into the house of God. The people of God have that music blaring at them, being thrown at them in every commercial, every TV show, as they drive down the road, in their workplaces and restaurants. That garbage music's always being pounded. The church ought to be a recess from this worldly music, and it ought to be a place of spiritual cultivation. And music, the music of the people of God matters. Now, you can go to different churches. I have had a friend many, many years ago. He was a Mennonite. And he said, in our church, the men sit on one side, the ladies on the other. And he said, we don't have any instruments in our church. We sing a cappella. And he had a great voice. And we got talking about music. And their churches sang, the kids grew up learning 3-4 part harmony, singing those beautiful harmonic parts. That harmony is so powerful to bring soothing to the soul. Harmony is powerful. It's like an antibiotic against an infection. But there's a style in some churches And churches are different and what kind of style. But I tell you, as soon as it starts sounding like the world, we need to get rid of it. You go over there to Exodus chapter 32. Joshua and Moses are coming down off the mountain, and Joshua says, "It is a noise of war that I hear in the camp." They weren't even down to the Israelites. There's a couple million people down there. And he said, "It's a noise of war." And Moses said, "It's not the noise of him that are overcoming or those who are being overcome, but the noise of them that do sing that I hear." And so their music that they were singing and the beat and whatever, it sounded like a war going on. And that was what they brought from Egypt. They'd left Egypt behind. They're out there in the wilderness, and they're getting the commandments. They're getting the story of the instructions about the Levitical priesthood and all that. They're there at Mount Sinai for quite a while, building the ark in the temple, the tabernacle and all. But they got worried. They got backslidden. Moses had been up on the mountain too long, and suddenly they got golden calves. They're naked, and they're listening to music that sounds like war. Those things go together. Inappropriate clothing, idol worship, and music that sounds like a war going on. And so we've got to be so very careful. There's a nightclub sound that there's a reason. The lights will be low, and they'll have this piano bar music, or they'll have this nightclubby music, some girl caressing the microphone and breathy singing into that microphone, and there's a sound. Well, you know what? I don't want my church to sound like a nightclub. I don't want my church to sound like a rock concert. I want my church to sound like the place where Jesus is worshiped, the Word of God is preached, and the people of God gather to be strengthened, to be strong in the Lord and the power of His might. And so let me encourage you. Music touches us. If you're raising children, you're going to have to be in control. My kids, they get a toy, whatever it is, an animal, a car, or whatever, and somebody gives something to their kids, and on occasion they're taking the batteries out because it's playing music they don't want their little kids growing up on, or it's an animal that's got two or three different kinds of music, and they disable one of the kinds of music because it's bounce music, it's dancing music, it's fleshly music, and I think parents, you ought to be in control. My daughter, one of my daughters, she likes during the time period in high school classical music, and she had a CD player with a radio attached. They always go together. And I walked by her room one day, and she was playing some classical music, very appropriate, but it wasn't CDs I'd gotten her. It was the radio. It was a classical radio station. And I didn't go in and chew her out or anything. I said, "Hey, let's do this. Let's find out what kind of classical music you like best. Let me buy you, I'll buy whatever CDs you want." But I didn't want her getting her classical music from the radio. Now, the reason is because if I'm bringing CDs into the room, I have control over that. But the radio, I have no control over that. All it takes is touching one button, and that suddenly we're off the classical station. We're into the classic rock, or we're into the whatever. And so I didn't want the radio playing in our home. I wanted to control the music that got into the heart and soul of my children, because music affects you. And again, I'll just read that in 1 Samuel 16:23. When he played, it says he was refreshed. That's his spirit, not spirit, but that's his, you're feeling good. He was well, that's his body. And the evil spirit, that is the spiritual world. Music affects us in all ways. Be very guarded what you let music get into your life. I shared this in the pulpit, but many, many years ago. My secretary, such a wonderful lady, Nancy Mitchell, godly lady, got saved early days of our church, and was for 25 years my secretary. And in the early days of our church, I still played my clarinet some, and I enjoyed fun music, whether it be some Dixieland or different types of just fun music. And but I had music in my head that music sticks with me, and I could play music from memory. And if you're playing your instrument or two or three instruments over here, and you've got music, I could play backup without any music, because I can find the key you're in, and that's just me. And I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that kind of music. And one day I was playing something, and it was a Dorsey Brothers or Glenn Miller or one of those big band era type songs. And I'm sure I was by myself in my office, But my secretary we had a little travel trailer, not a travel trailer, a mobile home, single-wide mobile. We'd convert into an office, 2 or 3 offices, and she was in there. And she said, Pastor, when I hear that kind of music, it reminds me of my old life. And it reminds me of the drinking and the dancing and the carrying on. And she said, that music brings me back. And I thought, that music brings me back to being a 4th, 5th, 6th grader. And with Mr. Allen, he'd put this kids band together, and they were good. And I didn't play with the band very much. I wasn't that good, but I played a little bit with them. But that music to me was just fun. But to her, it was the mental ambiance. Some of you might be able to be like me. You could just say rainy days and Mondays always get me down. And that was a big song in the 70s when I was in high school. And there was a melancholy type of music in the 70s, and beautiful harmony and pretty voices, and nothing that I remember vulgar or inappropriate in the words. But the music had this mellow, depressing type thing. And you know what? Teenagers don't need that. Teenagers get depressed all by themselves. I'm not letting anybody get my teenager's heart. But as a 68-year-old, I'm not letting anybody get this heart. I want to stay on top. And wonderful grace of Jesus, greater than all my sin. How shall my tongue describe it? Where shall his praise begin? Taking away my burdens, setting my spirit free. That music that lifts and that empowers and that breathes the spiritual life and pushes the forces of darkness away. Music matters. Music matters. And I'm so careful. If we don't watch much, we'll record some things once in a while. Watch some, but if it's a scene where there's a bunch of music playing, I just mute it. I don't want them getting a hold of me, because I do like music. My wife and I will be out somewhere, and maybe in a store or whatever, and we'll get in the car and I'll flip something on the player on our music list. And I say, I got to get that song out of my head. She'll say, what song? We could have been in the store and she wouldn't even know they were playing music. Well, the lyrics are going through my head. It's not only, it might have been a Beatles song that they've orchestrated, and it's a beautiful orchestration, but I know those words. And those words are going in my head. And so I've got to be very careful, because I may be a little more susceptible. But hey, you ought to be in a church with good old-fashioned gospel music. If a hymn is not welcome in the church, you need a new church. And just be blunt. I love Carl McMahon. He's in heaven now, but he said, Pastor, we were out of town. We're on vacation. Went to a 7-Eleven church. I said, what's that? What's a 7-Eleven church? He said, well, the songs they sing was 7 words sung 11 times. Shallow lyrics. Feeling, it's about how the music feels. It's not about what the lyrics do to your head. And get away from that. I was preaching, I mentioned this once before, but I was preaching out of town at a good church, good guy, good church, but he's drifting. And I've been, look, this is 50 years since I got saved. I've been in Baptist churches for almost 50 years. And I know songs, I know hymns. And I think they had 4 songs that they sang before I preached. I didn't know one of them. Not only did I not know one of them, I never even heard them before, but they didn't have any hymnals, and they had the lyrics up on a screen. So I didn't know that there's no music to follow, just lyrics up there. And they were this shallow lyrics, and it was make me feel good kind of music, and not sinful, but it's not going a good direction. Your music will affect your youth in your church. Your music will affect your marriages in your church. The devil uses music. Go to a casino, go to a gentlemen's club, whatever they call those places, go to a bar, there is going to be music playing. Go to a bunch of bikers out there drinking beer on their Harleys, there's going to be music playing. Music goes with a lifestyle. And I want the music that gets into my heart to be music that draws me to this book and to my Savior and to my church. Hey, God bless you. Hope you can get church this afternoon, 3:30. I'll do the Bible study, Lord willing. And then 7 o'clock tonight, Brother Joseph Esposito. You'll love hearing Brother Joseph. What a great guy he is. Have a great day.